outlook today. So we're coming at you live on clickorlando.com. If you got this push alert and want to join the conversation, please post in the comments. We will get all into that throughout the course of this live stream. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to get to those as well. And if you have any comments, post those in the comment section as well, and we will get to that. Turning on some light. Second night in a row that I forgot to turn on the light. I guess I like the darkness in this room. Alrighty, guys. So, as I mentioned before, Monday through Friday, 10 o'clock, we're with you live on clickorlando.com, TikTok, and the YouTube. Please post in the comments where you're tuning in from. And if you have any questions, and we are going to get to it, we're going to talk a little bit about maybe when the first kind of interesting feature of the season may pop up. It looks like it could be a couple of weeks away. And then, of course, we're going to break down these numbers. More often than not, these numbers are just kind of mumbo jumbo and don't really mean much if they impact us. Of course, we can have, I always say this, we can have a million storms out there. Let's hope that's never the case. But unless one hits you, it doesn't really matter. And that's what I want you guys to take away from these outlooks is that they're just numbers until they impact you. And we're going to look at some of the trends and look at some things. Meteorologist David Nazario and myself are working on something to kind of try to highlight some hot zones for next week. We've been watching the trends for the last couple of months, watching the modeling for the last couple of months, and just watching different things come into play as we go forward. So the middle number here is what was released today. That's the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. They came out with predicting 13 to 19 named storms, 6 to 10 of those becoming hurricanes, and then 3 to 5 of those becoming major hurricanes. So that's really those last two ones that I mentioned are the ones you want to pick up on because it lets you kind of in on a clue the quantity versus the quality. I'm going to go back to 2020, and that was a ridiculous season, by the way. If you don't remember, we had 30 named storms. The first 7, I think it was Hannah that year was the first hurricane. So we went through all those letters of the alphabet until we got a hurricane. Now, tropical storms can be bad. Each storm is different. Each storm brings their own impacts. But the point I want to make is early on in that season, there were a lot of kind of garbage storms, unorganized, very weak, very short lived. So that's why paying attention to the last two sections there, the hurricanes and then the major hurricanes kind of gives you a clue on how intense the season may be. So, more important, in my opinion, those last two. This goes in line with the Colorado State University outlook that was released back in April. They predicted 17 storms, 9 of those becoming hurricanes, and then 4 of those becoming major hurricanes. So they're pretty much right in line with each other for several reasons. The biggest reason is we don't have El Nino coming into play. We're not expecting El Nino coming into play. When you have El Nino around, that tends to limit the number of storms because there's increased wind shear on the Atlantic side of the basin. We like wind shear because that helps to rip storms apart. All right. If you're watching on the YouTube side of things tonight, welcome. If you're watching on the TikTok side of things, hope you're having a great evening. Again, post in the comments where you're tuning in from. If you have any questions, please post those in as well. That's supposed to have Eric's name on there. Hope you're doing well tonight, Eric. Thank you for joining the live stream tonight. If you're watching on YouTube, again, thank you guys so much for being here tonight. Watching on Click Orlando, if you got that push alert in the palm of your hand, if you're watching on your phone, in that story that's there, there you'll find a chat box, and you can head to that chat box and then post in that comment section. That is where we can bring your comments over and we can have that conversation. We're just hanging out. We're talking about the weather. All right. First thing I want to show you is, again, the numbers don't mean anything unless, trying to get my mouse to work here. The numbers don't mean anything unless you get impacted by said storm. So what I want to do now, I want to bring in some climate modeling. And this is what we're going to do a lot on the live stream 10 o'clock, Monday through Friday, especially now that we're about to be in hurricane season. One of my favorite things to do is look long range. Obviously, take that with a grain of salt. Any kind of long range forecast you see, including the stuff that we're going to talk about here. So that's kind of like the disclaimer. Um, but the one thing I like to do, and I like to call long range forecasting, you're kind of like an atmospheric detective. There are signs that the atmosphere can give even weeks in advance to certainly not specifics. And that's what I would always caution is you can't, it's impossible for specifics at any point in time. But there are certainly clues that, okay, a general region may need to look out, or okay, we're going to look in this general part for any kind of storm development, or maybe a blast of cold air or warm air when you're in the wintertime anyway. So we're going to start here in June. This is going to be the CFS V2. It's a climate model that we have, and this is the precipitation anomaly. So where you see the darker greens, that indicates where we could have above normal precip. So you see that for Florida. Now, once we get into June, our wet season starts, and that's whenever you're going to have the opportunity. I don't know why the names aren't publishing, but David, good evening tonight. It should have everybody's name on there. So I don't know what's going on with the technology this evening. Um, what kind of is interesting here is that you see the juice coming out of the Western Caribbean and then kind of lifting up and then kind of moving out over the Bahamas. So the CFS V2 is going to argue for something in June to develop and then move into Florida or the southeast corner of the United States. That would be great if it's nice and weak and sloppy and then brings us some much needed rain. So that's what I'm going to root for. Typically early in the season, that's what you would expect if you're going to be impacted by something. But it does look like the first go around could happen in June with a track, something developing maybe around the Cuba area, Jamaica, Western Caribbean, and then lifting up towards the eastern Gulf Coast, including Florida. So that's something that we're going to be watching for. And I will tell you, I look forward to kind of watching these connections come together and seeing what happens out of this. There are a bunch of things that argue for some kind of development as we get towards the first week of June. And we're going to get all into that at a later date. This is more just kind of breaking down the forecast seasonally and talking about what NOAA is kind of expecting for the season. That's July. Still some increased there's really nothing organized that it's showing, and we really kind of lose any kind of signal beyond July, and that is kind of typical as you go way out. This is another kind of model, another climate model. This is the CANSIPS. So June, you see that signal not really there, but then once we get to July, it shows a lot of green coming out of the Atlantic side towards the Turks and Caicos and towards the Bahamas. One of the things here, I'm just letting you in a kind of a little light on some of the hot spots that we're going to be working on, or at least that story slash kind of breakdown that we're going to get for you next week as we get into hurricane season officially, is that I think that we're going to have to be on guard on the Atlantic side of Florida for maybe, I'm hoping anyway, some near misses. It looks like the Carolinas, you see green there, kind of heading towards the Carolinas, and then that little blurb of green um, off of like Ocean City, Maryland, Delaware, kind of going back out. I think a hot spot this year is going to be the Bahamas. It's my hope anyway that we get these things to curve and then leave Florida alone, and then the east coast of the Atlantic seaboard, Carolinas, Virginia, need to watch out big time. And again, we're going to be on guard. For the last several months now, that is what it's looked like. And then maybe also something on the Gulf Coast of Florida. Um, So again, none of that is right in stone. Don't take that to the bank, anything like that. But that is something that we've noticed when we looked back at previous years that have similar sea surface temperature anomaly patterns. and all of that jazz. So that's going to be something that we get into next week. So look for that. And again, we're gonna highlight that as well. So that's just kind of a little bit of that's something we're going to be looking for. All right, so I want to get to some of the local weather really quick. Just kind of a teaser of what we're going to be talking about. New 6 at 11. So I hope to see you all there. Let me get back to my other weather computer. This is going to be the rest of tonight. A stray shower in the mix. Want to bring your attention. Want to bring to your attention tomorrow afternoon. Let's see. Eric says it's weird how hurricane landfalls in Florida don't cause as much damage as when they hit the northern states. So what I would say to that is that I think they do. Florida has much stricter building codes when it comes to that stuff, and you can thank Hurricane Andrew for that. After Hurricane Andrew decimated South Florida, building codes became much more strict. So I don't know that I would say it's less damage. It's just that our infrastructures down here is built much more and can withstand a little more than what they were if a hurricane were to hit. In most instances, too, the storm is likely a little bit weaker by the time it gets up to New England. And there's more terrain as well in New England, and they are much more susceptible to the catastrophic flash flooding, like what they saw in North Carolina and Tennessee from Helene, like what Irene back in the day did to places in the Northeast. And there was a recent one too, Vermont, up in that direction because of the big time mountains into play there. All right, so here we go. Watching for some strong thunderstorms tomorrow along Interstate 95. So that's going to be a thing. And let's see if we have any questions on TikTok tonight. Let's see. We got one new message. Oh, just joining, just saying hi. All right. Thank you guys a ton for being here on TikTok. Really appreciate you guys finding us on the TikTok machine and on YouTube tonight. That's right. Thank you, building codes. I know it takes a disaster to kind of learn from things, but yeah, I mean, you get that insurance deductible or that insurance what do you call it, discount, I guess, if you've got the roof ties on your house. All that stuff is kind of just extra again because we're so susceptible. I mean, we stick out like a sore thumb and the surrounded by water on three sides. A lot of times it's unfortunately hard for a storm to miss the state of Florida. Unfortunately. All right. So that's what we're going to be watching for strong storms tomorrow. And again, we are going to get into some of what we think some of the hot zones can be. And again, it's not every year that Florida is in a hot area. I particularly think that it's going to be close. I think we're going to have to watch close for storms getting close to the Atlantic side. Not saying they're going to make landfall. A lot of the analogs, the light years, bring them close to the Atlantic side of Florida and then turn them. That's what I'm hoping for. I mean, I hope they don't even get close. But if they're going to threaten, I hope they do one of these and curve on out of here at the last minute. Also, I think I have to watch the Gulf side. We're going to go into a lot more detail in a video next week. Alrighty, guys. Thank you a ton for tuning in. Again, this little update on, just want to go a little more in depth on what NOAA had to say, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, with their release for the 2025 hurricane season. We will be back here tomorrow night, Friday night, to go into the holiday weekend. So come with your questions. As always, come with your comments. If you like this, if you don't like this, if you want to see something different out of the live stream, we're here every night, 10 o'clock, Monday through Friday. So we're always available. Again, if you have burning weather questions, this stream is what you make it. And we will go from there as always. Thank you a ton for being here. We'll catch you tomorrow night. I'll catch you guys also at 11 o'clock on New 6. We'll see you then.